Our proposed project is based on the expansion of EVs, which is the main idea. And the problem which led to the inception of this idea is there are consumers who wish to buy electric vehicles, but there's a lack of infrastructure since there's not much awareness about it, which is why there's a gap between consumers and the institutions which provide EV infrastructure. So, in order to bridge that gap, we wanted to make this project. It addresses this issue by finding the prospective locations where EV infrastructure could be installed, or let it be finding the available charging points for electric vehicles. And another problem which we could come across was the insufficiency of data, since there's not much data available in this regard, as it's not much explored by users and researchers. But uh, the project might also seem like a data analysis project, which focuses majorly on finding data, which will predict the demand of EVs in the future. But to contradict this and to suggest an idea which would conclude that this is a generative AI project is we are scraping some data which we would feed into our models. We're using GAN model, which is generative adversarial networks, and we're also doing another model which is sentimental analysis. We are using these two models to generate data which is not really available. We're taking past data and converting it into predictions. So technically, we are taking a small input and creating more input based on it, and eventually calculating the demand growth of EVs in the near future. So moving on to the implementation, this is the basic UI which suggests the objectives of the project. The functionalities are as follows. Now, assistance is the feature for individuals. Now, we have two user bases for the project. One is individuals who wish to invest in EVs, and the other one are the institutions which offer or like who build EV infrastructure. So, these features, assistance is majorly for the users. It's a chatbot which has knowledge base about electronic vehicles, and this is how you could converse with the chatbot and ask them your doubts about EVs. You can ask any such doubts and the chatbot would answer. Moving on to the next feature, which is the map. Now we could find the areas where the available charging points are present, and users can refer to this in order to find charging spots if they wish to. Moving on to the next map, which we have found, like we have encoded, is the prospective spots for charging point installation. Now, in order to find these points, what we did was we calculated the main parameters which would be sufficient or like beneficial for users if the installation is done in that place. Like if if someone wants to charge the electric car, it would nearly take an hour or two for the car to get charged. So in that time, the users would want to relax or spend their time wisely, which is why it is substantial to consider locations where the users can spend their time. So we found out the places where people could indulge in recreational activities. So that was one of the parameter, and the other one is parking lots. Readily available parking lots or enclosed areas like those would be prospective for installation of charging points. So moving on to the next point, which is the report, we could generate a report on Power BI based on the data set which we could scrape from valid sources, and we could generate the data using GAN. This is the data which we could generate. Now, there's a dip here since there's not much data for this year as it has just started. It is the penetration percentage by year for EVs. Accordingly, we have also calculated the GDP. We have taken this data for the GDP to see the purchasing power of population, and accordingly, we have the amount of sales. Moving on to the next feature, which is visualization. Now, since we have used GAN to create or to generate data based for the given problem statement, this is what we could observe. Since there's a drastic rise in the results which we have generated using GAN, that's because there is a prediction for the demand to grow exponentially over time, which is why these are the results which we could obtain. The blue line has the previous data which we fed into the model, and the red line suggests the future or the demand growth in the future. Also, we did sentimental analysis for the data based on headlines, which we often find in newsletters or magazines. And that data on sentimental analysis suggested that the results were very accurate. And since the error is very low, the results which we could obtain, which suggest that there might be a positive demand inclination for EVs, as this is a very positive score. These were the basic functionalities which we could incorporate in such a short time. We also have many future scope points which involve enhancing the UI for individuals, as also linking more government incentives, as one of our aim is to encourage EV, like buying EVs is one of the major aim, encouraging users to buy one. So for that, we might also focus on looking up at the incentives offered by government for the ones who are using EVs. So yeah, that's all about it.